When you're painting an exterior door, there's a lot to think about. Here on this door, we got to remove the hardware. There's a window that we need to tape off, and then there's a doggy door that I don't want to get paint on the inner rim of. And then if you come with me and look at the inside, you'll see that there's also some blinds on the inside that need to be removed, and the doggy door, once again, I need to tape both sides. And also the hinges on the inside need to be taped off. The first thing that you always want to do is remove any hardware or accessories that may be on the door. They're normally only attached by a few screws or a few clips, like these blinds were. I grab my electric screwdriver to make it a little bit easier. I don't want to be having arthritis when I'm old. And these just pop right out after you unhook the clips. Like I mentioned, having this screwdriver really made it easy as pie, taking these brackets out. The next thing that you want to think about doing is by far the most time consuming, and that would be taping off everything and putting down paper on the floors to make sure that paint does not get somewhere that you don't want paint. And also, when you're working on doors, you're going to be inside and outside a lot, so you want to make sure you bring a jacket, or if it's summertime, just be prepared to sweat to death. But the wintertime, honestly, is a little bit better. And when you put down paper, you want to be careful not to actually cut the hardwood when you cut the paper. I like to just use something like a little putty knife, something that's not that sharp, so that just in case I slip through, I won't damage the floor. You also want to have a thicker paper because paint will seep through. After all that is done, now you can sand the door and do whatever else you need to do to get it ready to be painted. The purpose of a scuff sand is to make sure that the paint properly adheres to the door, but you don't want to keep the dust on the door, which is why I have this old brush that I use to just dust off any doors that I'm painting. These are the two paints that we're working with today. There's an interior and exterior paint, and we're going to be applying those with this roller that I picked up earlier. It was about $7 for a 2-pack, and it just snaps on like that. And I also grabbed this small Wooster shortcut is what they call it. It has this clip to hang onto a bucket if you needed to. One of the biggest rules of thumb when you're rolling on paint is after you initially make contact with the door, you want to roll up first and then come down, because the roller will spit paint everywhere if you go the other direction. And after that coat, I think everything was starting to look great. This is the color for the exterior of the door, and it was a little thick because it was sitting outside, but after I mixed it up, I went ahead and started to apply that. And I made sure to use my brush on this part. A roller wouldn't be able to get as in-depth. And this is what it started to look like after the first coat. There was still obviously some orange peel going on, and it was a little rough, so it needed to be sanded again. But all in all, I was satisfied with the progress. It was a race against time at this point, but I still stayed patient and applied the second coat. One area where I made a mistake on this job is they sell a spray can of primer that you can spray onto these vinyl or PVC trim doors, and it would have helped the paint adhere to the window trim on the door a little bit better. That's the one mistake that I found. I'm not sure of what that may cost, but it's not too expensive, and it will make a huge difference. Painting is an endless journey of learning, and I am not a painter by trade, so if anybody has any tips on what they think I could have done better, I'm all ears. I also need to do a better job of cleaning out all my brushes. I have a bad habit of using a brush and letting it sit for too long. I can't be the only one. Another great tip is using some olive oil on a napkin so that you can close your door and it won't affect the paint on the door. Don't try to use any other petroleum product. It has to be oil, preferably olive oil. It works great. But now it's time to take off this paint and see what it's actually looking like. Like I said, it was a race against time at this point, so it was getting pretty dark. That was perfectly fine. I had already applied all the paint, so I knew that it would be okay. After all the tape is off the door, it's time to remove the paper from the floor. And you can see I hung a blanket right there to protect their clothes. And this is how the door ended up turning out. The trim around the doggy door is still white, and the hardware still has to go back on, but the door is looking good. When you go to put everything back on, there's no doubt that you will run into something that doesn't go exactly how it was before. Just stay patient, clean up behind yourself, and it'll eventually work out and go how it's supposed to. This is the finished product with everything back in place like I was never there. I think the door looks great. If not, just let me know. Or not, honestly.